Hey everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to knit the trellis stitch. This is a lace stitch that I would put at an intermediate level. There's a couple different techniques in here that if you're a beginner knitter it might seem a little challenging to you. So if you're someone who's knit for a while, very comfortable with knitting, have started to do some lace patterns, or are at the intermediate level, then this would be a great pattern to try. It provides a stitch that it actually provides a fabric that lays nice and flat, as you can see. I have two samples here. This one's knit with a slightly thicker yarn, worsted weight, variegated. This one is with a solid color yarn, a little bit thinner than that. And as you can see, I haven't blocked these samples at all, and you can see they lay really nice and flat. This is the right side, and then this is the back side, or the wrong side. And yeah, the fabric is very stretchy, and I think it makes for a great pattern for a scarf or a blanket or a baby blanket, or really pretty much anything. Even if you want to knit a vest or something with this pattern, I think it'll look really good. So let me show you how it's done. I have provided the pattern details in the description field below. Now you will need regular knitting needles and also a cable needle. Now if you don't have a cable needle, I'll show you a trick, because you don't have to have a cable needle for this one. If you'll see in just a minute what I mean. But ideally you would need a cable needle, and the needle should be of the same size as the needle that you're using for your regular knitting, or at least close by. So I really don't have a lot of cable needles because I don't do a lot of cable knitting, but I have two. I have a thinner one and a thicker one. So I'll use this for US size 6, 7, 8, even 9. And then my thinner one I'll use for needle sizes that are thinner than that. But anyway, so you are going to need one of these, preferably. If you have one, that would be great. Now the stitch is cast on a multiple of 4 plus 2 stitches. So any multiple of 4 and then add 2 to it. So I have cast on 14 stitches here, which is a multiple of 2, which is 12 plus 2. And the pattern itself is an 8-row repeat, and you can actually start the pattern from the cast on edge itself. You don't have to have any kind of setup rows or anything like that. Now you're certainly welcome to add a few rows of a border if you wish to, maybe garter stitch or seed stitch or something, but otherwise you can just get started. All right, follow me as I'll do all 8 rows of the pattern. So row 1, the very first stitch is just a knit 1. Then you do a yarn over, which means in this case you're going to bring the yarn to the front. Then you're going to do an SKP, and that is slip, knit, pass the slip stitch over. So that means you're going to slip the next stitch. So you're going to insert your needle as if to purl and just bring it over without doing anything to it. Remember, your yarn is in the front because you did that yarn over. Now you're going to knit the next stitch. And now you're going to pass the slip stitch over. So the slip stitch is the second stitch on this needle. We're going to take our left needle, insert it into the front loop, and pass it over. Okay? Then the next stitch is knit 2 together. So you're going to take your right needle, insert it into the front loops of both stitches, and knit them together. And then you do a yarn over twice. So yarn over twice would mean you're going to bring the yarn over once, or yarn to the front once, and you're going to do it one more time. Okay? And that is your repeat. SKP, knit 2 together, yarn over twice. You're going to keep doing that till you get to the last 5 stitches. So let's do that a couple more times, or at least one more time. Now remember, your yarn is over because you brought it over twice. So yarn is going to be in the front when you do that SKP. So S as in slip, knit, and you'll notice as my yarn goes like that to knit, that yarn over has made 2 stitches. Because we did a yarn over twice, it's made 2 stitches. Okay? All right, so slipped, knit, pass the slip stitch over, and then knit 2 together. And you'll do this till you get to the last 5 stitches. When you're at the last 5 stitches, you're going to do the same thing again. You're going to yarn over twice. You're going to slip, knit, pass the slip stitch over. You're going to knit 2 together. Then you're going to do a yarn over and a knit 1. All right? So that was row 1. You're going to turn your work, do row 2. Now row 2 is pretty simple except for one little thing that you have to do. And so the row 2 starts off by just knitting the first 2 stitches. You're going to knit 2, then you're going to purl 2. And now starts your repeat. Now when you purl 2, you'll notice that you get to the point where these were the 2 yarn overs that we did in the previous row. You can see them right here, these first 2, right? So now you're going to take the yarn to the back because the next stitch, the pattern tells you, is a K2YO. And what that means is we're going to knit 2 stitches, knit these 2 stitches, these 2 yarn over stitches from the previous row, but we're going to knit them in a very specific way. So we're going to knit the front loop of the first stitch. This is this little loose loop, that's hard to say, loose loop that you see here. We're going to insert our needle through that front loop and we're going to knit, but don't toss the stitch yet. Now we're going to take this right needle to the back and we're going to insert it into the second loop of that yarn over. So not this first one, the second loop, we're going to insert it into the back of that stitch, okay? And knit it, all right? And then you're going to toss both stitches off. And I know I've split my yarn here, but I will pick that up. And I know it'll feel weird when you do that. The stitch kind of hangs loose like that, but that's okay. It'll tighten itself up. All right, and then your next 2 stitches are purl 2. So your repeat for this row is that K2YO that we just did and purl 2. All right, let's see that one more time. K2YO. So here we go. Here's these 2 stitches. We can see them. They're loose hanging. Those were the yarn over stitches. I'm going to knit through the first loop, front loop of the first stitch. Take my needle to the back, insert it into the back loop of that second stitch. And then toss both stitches. So I haven't really decreased or increased. I've made 2 stitches out of these 2 stitches, okay? And then purl 2. And you're going to keep repeating this all the way through to your stitches, all the way down to the last 2 stitches, which you will just knit. And that was row 2. You're going to turn your work, row 3. Now row 3 is where the cable needle comes in. So the cable needle only comes in for 2 rows. Each of these funky things you only have to do for like 2 rows during the pattern. Okay, so in the second row we did this weird K2YO thing. In the third row we're going to use the cable needle. So the third row, the pattern is knit 1, purl 1, and now starts the repeat. You're going to do cable 2 forward. So take the yarn to the back. Cable 2 forward means that you're going to take 1 stitch, insert it into the cable needle just like that, and hold it to the front. That's what that F stands for. You're going to hold it to the front and then you're going to knit the next stitch. Okay? Now this stitch that was on the cable needle, you're going to put it back on the left needle like so. And now you're going to knit that stitch. So by knitting the second stitch first and the first stitch second, you'll notice how it creates this cross, like this part has kind of crossed over and gone to the other side. So that's what that C2F does. It gives you this pretty cross, which you'll see later forms the pretty trellis pattern. All right, so our repeat is a C2F, which is what we did right here, these 2 stitches, and then a purl 2. All right, so we'll see that C2F one more time. I'm going to take this, insert it into my cable needle, hold it to the front. You can use your thumb to hold on to it. Knit the next stitch. Take the stitch back up and knit it. Okay, and then purl 2. And you're going to do that till you get to the last 4 stitches. Then you're going to do a C2F again. Now what if you don't have a cable needle? Well, if you don't have a cable needle, in this case, because it's only 1 stitch that you're holding on the cable needle, if you're brave enough, you can drop that stitch and just use your thumb to hold on to it. And then knit the next stitch. then put it back onto the needle and knit it. All right, and then the last 2 stitches are a purl one and a knit one. So you can try just holding on to the stitch with your thumb, or if you have like a little small stick or anything, you can use that to hold on, just because it's just 1 stitch. If it was anything more than 1 stitch, I would prefer that you have a cable needle and use the cable needle, because then you're in danger of dropping stitches. Okay, so that was row 3. Row 4, simplest row. Row 4 and row 8 is the simplest row because it's just knit and purl. So you're going to do knit 2, and then the pattern repeat is a purl 2, knit 2. So after 3 complicated rows of doing complicated stitches, this row you can relax a little bit and just do a knit 2, purl 2, all the way to the last, all the way to the end. Purl 2, knit 2. That's it. Half the stitch is done. We're done through rows, done with rows 1 through 4. Now we'll do rows 5 through 8. So for row 5 is almost similar to row 1, but the stitches are just staggered a little bit or changed up a little bit. So row 5, first stitch, knit 1, next stitch, knit 2 together. And now comes that yarn over twice. So we're going to take the yarn over once, take it once more, yarn over twice. We're going to do our SKP. So slip, knit, pass the slip stitch over, and then a knit 2 together. And that's the repeat until you get down to the last 3 stitches. So here we go. Knit 2 or yarn over twice, slip, knit, pass the slip stitch over, knit 2 together. When you come to the last 3 stitches, you're going to do a yarn over twice, a slip, a knit, pass the slip stitch over, and then you're just going to knit the last stitch. Okay, and that's the end of row 5. Row 6, now we got to deal with those funky yarn overs, the 2 yarn overs. So we're going to do our K2YO stitch. So row 6 is knit 1, purl 1, and we're going to do that K2YO. So we're going to knit into the front loop of that first stitch, the first yarn over, take the needle to the back, knit into the back loop of the second stitch from the needle, and then drop both stitches. And then we're going to do the repeat. The repeat is essentially purl 2, K2YO. So purl 2 and K2YO. Purl 2, K2YO. Every time I say that, it sounds like Y2K, but it's K2YO. All right, and then you do that all the way till the last 2 stitches, and the last 2 stitches are just going to be a purl 1 and a knit 1. So that was row 6. Okay, and you can start to see the trellis forming. Now row 7 is where you're going to need that cable needle again. So for row 7, you're going to start off with a knit 2, and then starts the repeat. The repeat is a purl 2 and then a C2F. So take the yarn to the back, C2F. Again, you're going to take the 1 stitch, leave it to the front, knit the second stitch, put that stitch held onto the cable needle back on the regular needle and knit it. And then you do your repeat, purl 2, C2F. This time I'm just gonna hold the stitch with my thumb, pretend I don't have a cable needle, put that stitch back on. Now if you do this, make sure you put that stitch back on in the right orientation, okay? And you do that till you get to the last 4 stitches. The last 4 stitches, you're gonna do purl 2 and then just a knit 2. You're not gonna do the cable thing on the last 2 stitches, okay? And that was row 7. That brings us to the last row, row 8. And that is just a knit purl row. So the pattern is knit 1, purl 1, and then knit 2. And then the pattern repeat for the row is a purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2. So purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, and do that till you get to the last 2 stitches. The last 2 stitches you're just going to do a purl 1 and a knit 1. And that's it. Those are the 8 rows that you're going to keep repeating, and you'll notice how this beautiful trellis starts forming here. And after a little while your work will look like this. I really like this stitch because it's very textured. You can see it provides a fabric that's nice and thick, and because of the way the pattern looks, it has this like 3D effect. And it provides these pretty, almost like honeycomb like holes, but not quite a honeycomb, more like a trellis. And so I hope you give this one a try. If you like the video, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. Click on the bell, the notification bell, so you get notifications every time I post a new video. And as usual, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comments box. I love reading your comments and I'll do my best to answer them. And thank you for watching. Happy knitting!